And we are live. Hello, folks. Pete Moriarty here, doing yet another open Q&A on Google Workspace on the channel. If you are here live, please make sure you say hi. Drop me a message, send me a wave, give me an emoji, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you like. Just say hi and let me know where you're watching from. And if you're a subscriber to the channel, thanks very much for being a part of the community. Great to have you here. If you're new to the channel or you're watching this on the replay, please say hi as well. Introduce yourself. Let us know what your business is. Drop it down in the comments. We have audience and community all over the world, and I'm very happy to support you wherever you are, and our audience and community are happy to support you too. Plenty of people answer each other's questions in the comments, and I really encourage that. So thanks for being here if that's you. And if you want to submit a question, you know what to do. Super easy. ask.itgenius.com. That's ask, A-S-K, .itgenius.com, and there is a link down below the video there somewhere where you can drop in your questions, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can live. Now, I think it's Monday morning in the United States if you're over in that side of the pond. I'm in Europe at the moment, so it's Sunday night, just about midnight for me, and if you're in Australia, you're probably just about starting your Monday morning. So wherever you are in the world, unless you're in Europe like me, you're probably sleeping. Hopefully you can tune in live from time to time, but I'm doing these at kind of random times at the moment. One day maybe I'll commit to a schedule. I don't know. We'll see. But we've got a big long list of questions here, which is exciting times because we've got lots of stuff to go through and lots of questions to answer. Richard has joined us on the live stream. Thanks for being here. Great to hear from you, and I'm really glad that these are useful. I'm going to try and add your comment to the broadcast. Thanks for being here, Richard. So this is where all your questions show up here on my nice big Q&A, and I'm going to sort by the most recent ones just to make sure I've got all of these covered if any come through live. Of course, you've got a QR code there. Let me just hide my face for a second. If it's easier for you to use your mobile phone, you can click the QR code there and submit a question. Put your name on there too, and you'll be featured on the channel. Anyone who's interested in having your little 10 seconds of fave on YouTube, drop in your name with a comment, and you will make it to a future video. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Thanks for being here. For those that watch our streams, once we have them up, we usually put the chapters in. I've asked my team to try and do that within a couple of hours if they can. We've got to wait for the video to render and all those kind of things with the stream, but hopefully we'll do that quickly. So if there's something you're not interested in, you can always just click through to the next section. Okay, so first question we're going to cover. Oh, by the way, if you didn't already notice, this is a democratic system, so you can vote for questions that you want to have answered, and they will find their way to the top. And I just basically start from the top and go down. I don't always get through all of them, but I do my best. Okay, so Johnny asks, are Google Drive, Docs, doc sheets, slides, videos, forms, etc. immune from ransomware, being that they are hosted online only and in Google's proprietary format? Even with Google Drive Sync installed, they are still only editable using a browser, although Google Drive Sync does map the drive. That's a good question, Johnny. I'm going to have to give an educated guess to this one. I can't give you the full answer. This is one that I would probably have to go to Gemini to ask. And I mean, that would be a bit sad, wouldn't it, if I just took everyone's questions and put them in Gemini? But I'm going to, just because I'm curious what Gemini says. And we're going to see if I'm right or not, because I think that'll be fun as well. But my understanding is, yes, correct. Google Files are really only a link to the online version of Google's proprietary file format, right? So if you're on your local desktop computer, you've installed Google Drive, you've got a copy of the files locally, and you click on that file, what looks like a file in your folder, and it's going to launch in Google Chrome, and if you're connected to the internet, it's going to open up the browser and start synchronizing to Google. So in that sense, it's not really a file that lives on your computer. Even if you're offline, if you've enabled offline mode, and you double click on one of those Google format files, it's going to open a cached version of that file that actually lives in Chrome. It doesn't live locally on your computer like a Word document would, or a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation. These are files that live in the Google world, and they live in the cache of Chrome rather than on your local desktop machine. Now, this is to my knowledge. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, but this is to my best knowledge. Now, can ransomware attack them? Well, first of all, let's explain what ransomware is. So ransomware, or crypto lockers as they're called sometimes, is a virus, malware, bad thing for your computer. And they tend to run on Windows machines more than they run on Macs. But what they do is they get into your computer and they encrypt everything. And there is a password to decrypt them, but that password is held at ransom until you pay the attacker X number of Bitcoin. I mean, it's probably a fraction of a Bitcoin considering Bitcoin prices right now, but you've got to pay a fraction of a Bitcoin to someone, and they'll then give you the key, which will hopefully let you recover it. Now, the challenge here is with crypto lockers is that key doesn't always recover absolutely everything. Sometimes when you get a virus, it's like a virus and a virus and a virus, and some files are decrypted with a different virus, and we've seen things like that happen. So even if customers have paid for that, or we've facilitated customers to pay the ransom, you can't always guarantee that you get all your files back. So this is a bad thing. Now, what we have seen happen, and this admittedly was many, many years ago, but we have seen a customer who had all of their documents in Google Drive encrypted or locked up by one of these crypto locker viruses. And that included messing with their Google documents. Now, this was like nearly a decade ago. Myself personally, I don't remember the forensics of how we restored every one of the Google files. I know with the Microsoft files, we had to restore them one-on-one from the Google Drive versions, and there were tens of thousands of files, so it was an absolute mess to get that data back. This customer had opted not to do a proper backup of their systems. They were running on Google Workspace, and they thought, hey, I'm on the cloud, so everything's fine. And they unfortunately took a very, very long time to get their data back. It was a law firm, 20, 30 staff. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses because they were down for a couple of weeks. So if you haven't already considered a backup for your Google Workspace account, that's a good idea. Click the link below, chat to our team if you're interested in that. We've got very affordable options for you. Or watch some of the other videos on the channel. I've got other videos explaining why you should back up your Workspace account and what to do. Now, do they actually encrypt the Google files? I'm not sure. I can't say for sure because I know those files are basically links to cache files that live inside Google Chrome when we're talking about Google format files. If you've got a PDF or a Word document or Excel document or something else, those are going to be encryptable very easily in Google Drive. And once you encrypt one version of it, Google's going to synchronize the encrypted version or the locked version to all your other devices, including Google Online. And undo is pretty hard in that sense. Now, can they actually change the Google file? My opinion is no. I don't think they can actually break a Google file because the Google file lives online. But what they could do is delete it. And I can't say for sure that all crypto locker viruses would do that. For the most part, they're typically in the business of locking files and then genuinely trying to give them back once you've paid the ransom. But I wouldn't put it past any nefarious actors or nefarious bits of software not to delete your files. So I'm going to put this one in Gemini because I'm really curious to see what the answer is. My guess is no, the actual file is not being changed by a crypto locker virus because it relates to a cache file, which then relates to an online file. But let's have a look what Gemini says anyway. Let's see if I'm right. So hopefully I can just beautiful. Let's cut and paste this, and this is kind of like one of those. It's kind of like one of those sick jokes where I realize I'm replaceable because I can just. Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's Gemini.com. Gemini.google.com. Thanks, Pete. All right, and let's see what Gemini has to say about this one. Okay, so Google offers significant built-in protections, but it's not entirely immune if you use Google Drive Sync. So here we go, version history. That's what I recommended. If you want to get your files back, you've got to use version history. Pain in the butt because it has to be restored file by file. There's no one-click button restore, as per the last time I checked. Deleted files remain in the trash. That is a good point. If anything was to delete your files, they will be available in the trash. You can always get them back from there if you realize within 30 days. Not everyone realizes. Okay, here we go. Proprietary format files. It does offer some protection, primarily targets system and common files, less likely to directly encrypt the backend data of a Google Doc stored on Google servers. I would say that's virtually impossible. If the only way it can attack is Google servers. That's pretty much impossible. Google invests heavily in cybersecurity, blah, 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 blah. Yep, we know that. Okay, cool. So vulnerability in Google Drive users. All right, so what I'm really curious about, here is specifically, I want to know if a Google document format file can be encrypted anyway on a local computer, or is this just fundamentally a link to a cached file for offline mode in Chrome and a link to an online URL in Google's cloud online when it's using online? I don't care about Microsoft files and everything else that's vulnerable. I just care specifically about the Google format files. Let's see what Gemini has to say about that. Okay. And I'm using Gemini 2.5 Flash. This is like the latest fast answer Gemini model. The 2.5 Pro is a little bit slower, but it gives you better in-depth answers if you want a more distinct answer. Maybe this would have been a good question for Pro, but I think Flash is doing pretty well with it so far. So the breakdown is, here's how, okay, cloud first, fundamentally designed to be cloud first. Okay, local caching for offline access. Yes, this local copy is not a standard, easily accessible file. It's stored within Chrome's index. Okay, I was correct. Database system used by the browser for storing significant amounts of structured data. That probably means it can't be crypto-locked, but I don't know. Maybe Chrome's index could be. These files are hidden. When you're online, the file is a link to the online URL. Again, I was right. I love it when I'm right. When you're offline and accesses the case data, that's also what I mentioned. So can it be encrypted? No, they cannot be locally encrypted because it's stored in a proprietary system within the browser's storage system, not as a standard file. That's good to know. I mean, some other cases you can encrypt data that's kind of like hidden. For example, if you had a Outlook file, right, which is a .pst file, that's a big mailbox file. Or if you were on a Mac, you have an inbox folder, but within that folder, it's got a whole bunch of like .eml files, which are individual emails. If a cryptolocker got into your Mac and it found its way into those files, yeah, absolutely, okay, they would be able to encrypt those. But so far, Google files, no. So far, no. Okay, so your data is encrypted in transit and when it's stored on servers, yes, thank you, Google. Very, very, very safe and well protected. If you've got a Workspace account, your administrator can enable client-side encryption. This enables another layer of encryption. And yeah, basically there's nothing that can happen to your Google Docs. So there you go. Your Google Docs are pretty safe, but my guess is if you're a business owner, you've probably got a whole bunch of other stuff sitting in your Google Drive. So if you haven't yet considered a cloud-to-cloud backup for Google Workspace, now would be a good time to do it. And you can search our channel and find plenty of videos on exactly that topic. Great question. I like that one. I like lots of people voted for that too. Let me find my questions here as well. I wonder how many times I'm going to use Gemini to answer questions from now on. Maybe we should just do that. Maybe we should just feed your questions into Gemini and then have an AI bot version of Peter respond to them. I don't know. It wouldn't be as enjoyable, would it? All right, so what's the best way to back up important files? Okay, well, that's a good question. Let's talk about backup. So if you're a small business owner and you're working in the cloud world, you are probably what we call cloud native, which means that you're digitally native, you've got a business or a service or a product that you're selling that most people nowadays can kind of work from anywhere. Yeah, some people still have brick and mortar, shops or stores, or they have a warehouse or something like that. But for the most part, because we can pick up our mobile phone and use our apps on the go, or we can just jump onto our laptop and work with our team remotely via meetings, and most of our apps just sit in the cloud. It means we're pretty flexible where we can work from. That comes with some challenges. It means that if we're working from a laptop, we've got the potential for files to be sitting anywhere, everywhere, all over the place. And that means that they're potentially vulnerable to being lost, stolen, or going missing somehow if something goes wrong. Let me get myself a little drink here. All right, so if you're one of those business owners and you've got files in a few different places, and yeah, sure, I save some things to my desktop every now and again. I take a screenshot, it drops it on the desktop by default. I download a file and it sits in my downloads folder. It doesn't necessarily go into my Google Drive, because if it's a big file, I'd have to download it and then I'd have to upload it again back in my Google Drive. So files can kind of be around. So how should we approach backup? And how should we approach backup of both our local files and our online files as well? Now, the general rule with backups is called the 3-2-1 rule. 3 different backups, or 3 different places where your data is stored, at least 2 locations or 2 different types of media or medium where it's stored, and at least one of those is offsite or in a different place. So how do we approach that for your local files on your computer? Honestly, my preference is to pretty much back everything up into Google Drive. I've got Google Drive set up on all of my computers. I download the app to my computer, which allows me to synchronize my Google Drive up and down to the computer. But there's a little known feature inside of Google Drive which actually lets you back up more than just what's in your actual Google Drive online on the web. You can synchronize other folders and other files from your computer hard drive into Google Drive, and those files and folders will show up online as My Computers. This is not really a known feature, but this feature allows you to basically have your local files on your computer backed up to your Google Drive using your Google Drive storage. So let me show you how it works. I'm not sure if it's set up on my studio machine actually, because I've got this configured with some alternative backups, but let's have a crack anyway. And apologies, I can't zoom into the interface and make this bigger because it's unless it's a web app. No, it's not. Okay, so you'll have to kind of squint your eyes or maximize your screen to look at this one. Sorry about that. Okay, so when I download and install the Google Drive app, it's going to allow me to connect it to a number of different accounts. So you can see I've got it connected to multiple email accounts that I have, and that's going to bring down my Google Drive to this computer. And you can see here on the left hand side of my Finder window, I happen to be on a Mac at the moment. I can open up my Google Drive here. It's going to show me my drive. It's going to show me my shared drives, and I can pretty much access anything that I would see if I was sitting in my drive on the web. So here's my drive. Got everything I need in there. Zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Okie dokie. So let's go back to my Google Drive app here. And you can see here, I've got, where are my additional syncing ones? Here we go. Cool. Okay. So I've got the option to synchronize my stuff from Google Drive. You can see here, I've chosen the option to stream files, which means that a copy is on the cloud always, but only what I need gets downloaded to my computer. In the past, when we had Dropbox and in the early days of Google Drive, you would do something called selective sync, and you would have to choose tick boxes. And with those tick boxes, you would choose, do I want this folder? Do I not want this folder? Do I want this folder? Do I not want this folder? That becomes a bit of a pain in the butt. So what Google did is they used a number of different technologies, and they created this cool way of accessing your files called streaming. Whereas if I want to open my Google Drive via the Finder here, I can open my shared drives and I can see everything in my company. I can open up the Attract folder, which is our marketing team, and I can even go in and have a look at some of our content here. Excuse the mess. It's going to be a little bit hard for me to find some. Let's maybe see if I can scroll down. I think it's got numbers on it for years. Oh no, we have a dedicated folder for content. That's right, because it got so big. So I can jump into my content and see all the videos that I've recorded this year. And if I decide to open up one of those videos, I can see all of the subfolders, and there's editing that my team have been doing. I've even got right down to the individual videos and files that I can see right here. Now you can see there's a little cloud icon next to each one of these. If I want to access this file, I can double click on the file and it's automatically going to start downloading that on the fly. It's going to take potentially a couple of moments and a few moments if it's a couple of gigabytes. But if it's something here that's just like 55 megabytes, I can double click that. It's going to download it on the fly and then open that file for me. Now I'm going to close that straight away, otherwise it's going to get weird with some extra feedback happening. But you get the idea there, and that is what streaming is. So that file stream from Google's cloud down to your computer means that you've got access to all of your files, all of your folders. You don't have to worry about what's synchronized and what's not synchronized, and you can just access it easily. Now, I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but I think this is important for you to understand why this stream feature is so useful. The other cool thing you can do, of course, if you want to have more of these files available offline, you can right-click on a folder and choose to make it available offline, and anything included in that folder is going to be automatically downloaded. And you can see here, luckily I've got a pretty fast internet connection. It's going to get through these pretty quick, but it's going to start downloading these different files, and I'll always have them available. In fact, I'm going to switch that back to online only because I have zero use for any of those videos, and I'll leave them online. So now you know how streaming works. Let's look at backing up our local machine. So here I can choose backup folders that I want to have backed up. And let's say, for example, I want to back up everything that's sitting, will I do that? Yeah, sure. Everything that's sitting in my pictures folder on my computer. And you can see here, it's found a whole bunch of pictures. It's saying, all right, we're going to synchronize with Google Drive. It does also give me the option to back them up to Google Photos as well. So if I want to choose to back them up to Google Photos, it'll automatically back them up to Google Photos. I'm going to go ahead and say done and say save. And that one is going to do its thing. Waiting. Now, that should happen pretty quickly. These are not huge files. I can see that Google Drive is whirring away there, getting all those files uploaded and synchronized. It's moving pretty quickly, which is pretty cool. And then when I go to my Google Drive online on the web, and I'm going to have to switch to my production account. All right. You'll see here on the left-hand side, I can see computers. And from computers, we've got, looks like a couple of different versions of my iMac here. That's okay. I wonder if I can change the view. I don't know. Okay, that's fine. Let's check the date. Here we go. All right. So I can see pictures here, and I can jump in and see any of those pictures. Now, probably won't open the first page of my passport there. That's probably not a good idea. But let's open up one of, here we go, my profile photo. That's probably the safest one we got there. Great. Okay, cool. So all of these files are backed up. Now, if I wanted to, I can point that Google backup at my whole hard drive. I can point it at my C drive or my D drive or your Mac hard drive, whatever your hard drive's called, and that's going to do a pretty good job of backing up absolutely everything. It's not going to back up every single system file, because some of them are like cache files, some of them are system files, some of them are in use, but it's going to back up pretty much everything. It's going to snoop and grab all your photos. It's going to grab all the random files you got hanging around in the different folders. So you can trust that it's going to do a pretty good job. In some ways, this is a pretty darn good and convenient backup, because the only other way to back up a local computer is to run some kind of backup app. And usually, they're not amazing. The only one that I would really trust is an app called Backblaze. And this is, for a long time, it has been the absolute leader in just backing up your whole machine. It'll crawl the hard drive, it'll get into as many system files as it can, and for a very, very affordable online price. I'm not an affiliate, by the way, earn nothing by recommending them, but Backblaze will back up absolutely everything. Works on Mac, works on PC, and for a small fee per year, they'll do absolutely everything for you. So that company, again, is called Backblaze. I'll just show you what that looks like so you know you're looking at the right one. Here we go. And what kind of price? And I think it's about $100 or $200 per year. There we go. Yeah, $100 a year. So you'd be silly not to jump on that to back up your individual computer. I think if you buy some of their plans, you can even back up multiple computers, which is pretty cool. I don't know exactly how many computers is the limit, but you can go ahead and check out their terms. Okay, so now we've got our local machine backed up. We've got it in 2 places, not quite 3 places yet. We've got it in 2 places. We've got it backed up online, which is good, so it's in multiple different locations. What do we do for our cloud data? Well, that's where it's a good idea to have a cloud for cloud backup. Now, once we've got everything into Google Drive, we can then just back up Google Drive and we should be dandy. That's my philosophy anyway. So I use a cloud-to-cloud backup, and there's many solutions available. The top two for Google Workspace are Backupify and Spanning. There's a brand new one on the block called AFI. I haven't tested that personally yet, but it's getting lots of rave reviews at the moment. It seems to be getting pretty popular. One of those three I think will do a great job of backing up your Google Workspace account, and that means that you've got your data in a third place. And the thing I love about using either Spanning or Backupify is because your data is stored in the proprietary Google format, if you need to, you can restore all of that data and keep its original format. So something goes wrong with your Google Workspace account, for whatever reason it becomes kaput, and you've got to get a new domain name and start from scratch. You can take all that data inside of Backupify or Spanning, and you can suck that back out and put it back into a fresh Google Workspace account, even if the domain name is different. So that's basically my philosophy for backing up. Now, if you're someone who carts around, I don't have one here, but a hard drive, you know what I mean, the little USB dongles, or spinning hard drive with a USB that you plug into your computer, and that's the only place that you have your files stored, I've got to say you're a bit of a dill. Well, I don't want to say you're a dill, but that's a bit of a dill of a strategy for backing up. That is not a good idea at all. Many people make the mistake of thinking that a single drive plugged into their computer, outside their computer, is a backup. That's not a backup. That's just somewhere you happen to put your files. If they're not in at least two places, they're not safe. So, as someone who has lost data before, and I lost when I was a teenager, a music collection that I had been collecting for nearly a decade, it hurts, particularly if it's family photos or if it's some kind of commercial work that you're going to be in hot water for losing. So don't ever use hard drives, just not a good idea. If you really wanted to, you could back up your local computer to a hard drive, but you want to make sure it's encrypted. So if the wrong person gets their hand on it, nothing goes wrong. And you want to be very, very careful that that backup is actually running. When I recommend an app called Backblaze, when I recommend an app like Backblaze, I know that that's going to be running every time you turn on your computer, and it's going to be constantly hunting for new files to back up. That's the kind of thing you want. I know the cloud-to-cloud backups for Google Workspace just run in the background every day, and they give us an alert if anything ever goes wrong with it. Again, as much as possible, you want this to be automated so you don't have to think about it. If you're interested in backup and you want to have a chat, click the link down below this video. Okay, great question. Great question. Okay, cool. Would you care to go through a federation setup where Google is the IDP with Microsoft 365? I would love to, but I would have to invite one of my engineers on the call to do that. So I will save that for a future. I'll save that for a future session. Let me put that on the ideas list now, because I actually have an ideas list here, and I'll make sure. Well, I don't know if I can, but I will put it on the. I'll put it on the list at least to cover another day. So Microsoft and Google, and by IDP, what Michael means, Richard, means is identity provider. All right, I'm putting that on my videos list, and I'll do my best to cover that in an upcoming video. Okay, cool. And the short version of why you would want to do that is if you are an organization that has a lot of Microsoft gear, either Microsoft servers that you want to have work with Google Workspace, or you've got Google Workspace and you want it to work with Microsoft Kit, like maybe the servers of Microsoft need to talk to the Google authentication, or maybe you've got Microsoft desktops and you want to connect them, where you can use Google as an authentication service, or Microsoft is your primary authentication service, but you can get them talking to each other, which is nice. Never could do that, but you can now, and it works quite nicely. Okay, let's move on to our next question. All right. Please talk about the upcoming Android desktop and the use case for it being a replacement for laptop or a Chromebook. Boy. I don't have much information on this. I wish I could. All I can tell you is what I know, and sorry to my edit team who won't get a full video out of this. Upcoming Android for desktop is effectively a rewrite or a reimagination of the Chrome operating system. Google have realized they got a good thing going with the Android operating system. I don't know if Chrome has really met their expectations in terms of like how far they wanted their Chrome OS ecosystem to grow. I know it's done great in schools. A million people have Chromebooks, but Chrome OS is still, not really making big waves in the desktop market. Google have now decided in their wisdom that, hey, we're going to take this amazing operating system that we've built for Android, which is reasonably secure, it's got a great ecosystem of apps, it's got plenty of people on board building for it, and we're going to use that instead of Chrome OS. Personally, I don't know what that's going to look like. All I can give you my opinion. All I can give you is my opinion in that I'm curious how they're going to take a mobile application and transform it to the desktop. They have had some reasonably decent Android tablets. We'll see. I'm very curious to see how that is going to be imagined. Are we going to even see much of a difference as end users? I don't know. Like, would my mum know if something was on Android versus Chrome OS? I'm assuming they're going to give the users just some kind of basic way of accessing all the things they need to. A start button to do things, a search button to do things, because it's Google, of course. A set of apps, even if they're online apps. I don't know what else I should expect. But if you know more about it than me, drop it in the comments. I'd love to know. Let me know what you think. Okay. So this is a good one coming up, and I'm going to need a very quick snack break. I'm going to be back in about 1 minute because I can notice my energy dipping, and I want to bring it back. So bear with me. I'll be back in just one moment. Now, I don't know if my team will get annoyed at me for this, but I'm also curious if they'll give me a big cheer and say, "Oh wow, Pete, well done for being so authentic on your stream." I always wonder how people stream for like hours and hours and hours. Surely they must need a break to go to the toilet every now and again. But anyway, that's a question for another day. We're going to answer a question here for Nathan. Hi Peter, our creative team has 10 terabytes external drive with old project data. I need to make space but can't afford to lose the data. I suggested a shared drive as we have 300 terabytes of Google Workspace storage, but not sure if it's the best solution for this kind of storage. Could a GCP storage solution be better? Well, that is an excellent question. Okay. In the old days before we had the cloud, when you had a creative business that had a lot of heavy assets, might be an architecture firm working on plans and designs for skyscrapers. It might be a video production business that's shooting commercials. It could be a photography business that's got a whole bunch of wedding photos and videos and stuff like that. Quite often, businesses will end up with a lot of data. I've been shooting videos for over a decade on YouTube, and so I've got a hell of a lot of data as well. And in the old days, we would get a big storage array that would either be directly plugged into a server, or maybe it's just plugged into the network. It would be a DAS or a NAS or a SAN, and they stand for technical things. But basically, it would be a large array of hard drives, and they would have redundancy for failover if something went wrong with them, and that would protect your data. Then the cloud came along, and Google and others made it really easy to store your data on the cloud. Now, some of those apps were more kind of like consumer-focused apps and really aimed at ease of use. I'm talking about Google Drive, Dropbox, to a lesser extent OneDrive because it's kind of crappy and not that many people use it. Most people are still using either Dropbox or Google Drive. Now, those solutions were great, but if you've got really heavy files, most people were kind of, I guess a bit curious and concerned about whether or not really heavy file loads would work. And there are dedicated solutions for very heavy file workloads, like using an Amazon storage bucket. It's called S3, and you can send boatloads of data to S3. Hundreds and hundreds and terabytes, and probably even petabytes, or whatever the next one is. And that's going to serve that back to you just fine whenever you need it. There are specific archiving solutions as well, which will take data that you seldom need to use, but might want to bring it back once upon a time, right? Every now and again. You can use those. And I don't think data lake is the technical term for that. I think it's called cold storage or archival storage. Amazon will have their own specific name for that. But Google, or Google Cloud Platform, GCP for short, has their own version of that as well. They have data storage, which is called, I don't know if it's block storage. That's something. I forget the name. It escapes me. So one of the questions is, should you use that block storage or should you use something like Google Drive to store these large files? And my opinion is that Google Drive is just fine for most data. Like if you've got 100 terabyte or so, Google Drive is going to handle that just fine. Particularly if you've got a large company and you've got a lot of users, you've probably got quite a lot of space because all of the users in your Google Workspace account pool all of their storage together, and everyone's basically got access to a massive storage cap. Now, you can restrict how much each individual user uses by setting a setting in the admin panel if you really want to lock that down. But for the most part, everyone by default gets access to a huge pool of data storage. So I'll show what that looks like in my plan here. If I open up my Google Drive, you'll see here 47 terabytes is being used of 435 terabytes, because I assume that's what, 8 times 5, is that right? That looks about right. Yeah, we got 80-ish users in our account, so 400-ish terabyte of data available. And let me tell you, Google does not slow down for a second, no matter how much data I throw at that. So 47 terabytes so far, and that's absolutely fine. Now, in fact, I store all of my historical content data, exactly what this questioner is asking about, in our content folder. You can see here, I've got different folders for different years. And if I want to go back to something all the way in 2010, let's go and look at some of the first videos. Oh, okay, cool. That's maybe not actual video stuff. What do we got here? All right, so there's some there's a webinar that I ran here. Here we go. We've got a recording all the way back in 2014, and this should play pretty much instantly, even though that's a very old file. It's probably a small file, so it should play in the browser just fine. Here we go. Look at that old version of Peter with hair. Oh, let me make sure I pause that because you're going to get slammed with the audio. So there you go. You are able to pretty easily store and retrieve files straight from your Google Drive. I see no reason why you wouldn't just chuck it all in Google Drive. Google's block storage or professional GCP cloud storage solution is more designed for when you want to move data and have it served in some way to someone. Maybe you want to expose it to an app. Maybe you want to expose it to a website. Maybe it's absolutely critical that the cataloging of that data is done perfectly because, I don't know, maybe it's someone's personal information. Maybe it needs to be stored in a programmatic way and be retrieved in a programmatic way. Okay, cool. In those cases, that's when you would maybe use Google's cloud storage. But if it's just a whole bunch of archive stuff that's sitting around on, local individual USB drives, I hope not. Or if it's maybe sitting in a NAS drive, a storage server of some sort. Yeah, sure. These are great candidates to just plonk them all in Google Drive. And how do you get them up there? Well, for the most part, hopefully you got a good internet connection. You drag and drop and you wait for them to upload. And then you check them once they've been uploaded. Pretty straightforward process. If you do need help with migrating data, there are options available. You can ship us a hard drive. You can ship Google or Amazon a hard drive if you want to add things to their storage. Depending on how much data you've got, you may decide to do that. But these days, people's home fiber optic connections are pretty darn good. And many of them are up to like 500, 800 megabit, even 1 gigabit connections. And let me tell you, that flies. If you've got 10 terabyte to upload, it'll probably knock that over in a couple of days. So that's my take on backing up, uploading your data, where you should save it. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right. Where is my next set of questions? What do we got here? How do I automate repetitive tasks in Google Workspace? That's a good question. Thanks, Anonymous. A couple of different ways I want to answer this question. Number one is, if you've got stuff that needs to be done on an ongoing basis inside of Workspace, the thing that I think of most immediately is a platform like Zapier or Make.com. They're the easiest automation platforms to use. They're very powerful, and they will let you create automated business workflows that integrate with the Google Workspace ecosystem. So that's an external tool. I absolutely get that. Not necessarily doing things natively inside of Google, but how can you automate things inside of Google? Well, you could use the Google API if you wanted to, and there's an app called GAM, which is a command line tool for Google Workspace. Let me open that up and show you that one. Now, you've got to be pretty geeky to get this one working, but if you are a computer geek, you can run GAM, and this is a command line tool which lets you do operations inside of Google Workspace. Now, what is the cool thing about that? Well, it means if you want to onboard a user and add them to the group and change certain parameters about their name, you can do that all from the command line. If you want to, say, automatically have a mailbox delegated to another mailbox, but you don't have to log into the account to do that, you can do this one from a command line. And because you can do it all from the command line, you can create scripts and automations and your own kind of triggers to make those things happen. So GAM would be one option if you want to get your hands dirty and actually create some automations and create some slick things for yourself. Okay, what if you're not that slick? What if you want to do it differently? Well, let me think. What's left in Google Workspace? You can use Zapier or Make.com. You've got the ability to set up, via the API, anything you want, but you would have to build a third-party application for that. Or the final option is you bring in a partner to help you do it. IT Genius happens to be a partner that helps you get things done inside of Workspace. Now, we're not fully automated yet. We're doing some pretty cool stuff, and we're going to launch some interesting products to our Concierge program later in the year. Concierge being our all-you-can-eat consulting service for Google Workspace. But right now, what our team are really useful for is if you've got something you want to get done inside of Workspace, our team are like a technical VA who can help you get it done for you. If you want to, onboard this new staff member because they're starting on Monday, you need to issue an email address for them, add them to some groups, maybe add them to some single sign-on applications, send them an invitation to your Asana account. We can do all of those onboarding tasks for you and act like a virtual IT department so you don't have to worry with it. If you've got someone leaving the business, you want to save their data and archive it to a certain place. You want to make sure that it doesn't disappear when they disappear. You want to make sure that their account is properly suspended on the day that they leave. And then after that, they're not able to access any of your company data again. All of those things and much, much more you can delegate to our team and share with us if you don't want to do those kind of things yourself. So I implore you, go ahead to itgenius.com, check out our Concierge service. Concierge is the ultimate subscription for businesses on Google Workspace, and it really helps you get the most out of your platform, your investment, your commitment to the Google Workspace ecosystem. We support many apps under Concierge, and there's heaps of things that we can do between both enablement, between supporting you, and between fixing things when they go wrong, but also making sure that they are secured as well. So if you're interested in Concierge, it's I think a real steal to get a subscription for you and your business. We can support not only you, but also your staff as well. And if you're interested in that, click the link below, schedule a free consultation with our team, and they'll be happy to talk you through our offer, see if it's a good fit for you and your business. If not, we've got plenty of other options to help support you as well. Now, if you're on the live stream, I've got to say, it's time for me to drop off. I'm noticing my energy is dropping a little bit. I would have loved to go longer, but I promise you I'll be back for more soon, hopefully sometime this week. I'm going to say goodbye, good morning, good night, wherever you are. Thanks so much for joining. If you've got more questions that I haven't yet answered, head to ask.itgenius.com or drop them in the comments. If you just want to say hi, drop in a comment as well. I'd always appreciate that. I do read every single comment. Can't always respond to everyone because there's quite a lot that come through,